And welcome everyone to Inside the Outhouse. It's great to have you all inside today, and we're pretty excited this afternoon because we've got Robyn Fox, my friend and colleague from the University of the Sunshine Coast, and she's going to talk to us all about sustainability in the outdoors, and that'll be quite exciting because I think it's something that we need to really get on top of. And I know Robyn has some very good ideas in this area. Just before we do that, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to lands, waters and communities. We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and their elders past, present and emerging. Just while I've got your attention, I would like to thank the amazing Outhaus oligarchs, Cherie, David, Henry and Mads for all their hard work and toil to make this vital community project happen and look beautiful. If you haven't already, check out my new podcast, Imposters and Gurus, episode 2, up online, a very interesting interview with Laurie Mode, CEO of Outdoors New South Wales, ACT. Without any further ado, I will throw over to Robyn to take us forward. Thanks.
Okay, good day, folks. I can see Linda there and Damon, who I've spoken to before. So good day to all of you. And there must be one other person who I'm not sure who they are, but welcome to everyone. Today we're Jessica. I can see you now.
Hello, sorry. I just thought I'd drop in. I'm just a student at VU and big fan of this little outhouse that you got. So just going to listen in. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for everyone joining on this Queen's Birthday weekend. It's a beautiful day up here on the Sunshine Coast. So today my presentation will be talking about sustainability. However, that sort of encompasses climate action and climate crisis, environmental justice, stewardship in nature, as they're all intertwined. My name's Robyn Fox. I'm currently working at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and I've been involved in outdoor education for pretty much all of my existence on planet Earth, both in Australia and teaching overseas in international schools. So Pento in 2009 states that all education in one sense is environmental education, and it really makes no sense not to include environmental education when we are educating. So I encourage you to take that notion with you as we go through the discussion today. If at any stage you want to jump in and ask any questions, please do so. So I'm beaming to you all from the Sunshine Coast. I live in Alexandra Headland and I'm on Gubbi Gubbi country today. So I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging, and strive to work towards securing a brighter future together. I just thought we'd go back in time and look at a quick snapshot at planet Earth, the place where we all live and reside. And the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. I'm 50 years old and I think I'm pretty old, but that's nothing in comparison to the time scale of the Earth. And I was looking at another video today, and one of the guys was explaining with a piece of rope. So we've got to imagine that this line at the bottom here is 45 meters long, and each centimeter on this line is 1 million years. So this is the whole evolution of planet Earth. And the last 2 millimeters of this rope represent the time in which humans have been here on Earth. So you've all got this image of this rope that's 45 meters in length, and the last 2 millimeters of this rope is the time in which humans have been here on Earth. If we just go back 3.6 meters along this line, we move back to the carbon furious era, where all the oil and gas were deposited on planet Earth. And if we move to the very end of the timeline here and we get a little hair follicle or one strand of our hair, we can pull one out and we can just look at that in our hand now, and we place that on the edge of this line here. This strand of Earth indicates the time since the Industrial Revolution. So it's just this little tiny strand of hair at the end of this 45-metre rope that indicates the Industrial Revolution, where we've actually used up most of this oil and gas, all these reserves. And this has led to our dangerous global climate crisis and a global climate change. So hopefully that just gave you a good snapshot into our microscopic time here on Earth, in which we have had such a big impact since the Industrial Revolution. Today in Brisbane, it was recorded to be 36.6 degrees Celsius. And this was actually the hottest October day since 2004. So the hottest October day in the last 18 years here in Brisbane today. And pretty much every day we get a little snapshot from somewhere around Australia or the world that this is the hottest day, or this is the hottest month, or this has been the hottest year. So as we know, global temperatures are increasing, and this is exacerbating the impacts of the climate crisis. I know Damon's online here, and I probably should have given him a shout out in the first slide that he and his team of people have formed the Outdoors People for Climate Action, and Jessica and Linda and whoever else is on here. If you haven't joined up or looked at that group, that's a great group to look up, and they're really advocating for people to speak up about climate change and climate action. So we are living in uncertain times at present, and climate change is impacting how we run outdoor education programs, and the impacts of the Anthropocene are far-reaching. Outdoor education programs in Australia have become increasingly susceptible to the effects of climate change. The recent catastrophic bushfires in Southeast Australia have impacted outdoor education's program locations and infrastructure, and climate-induced events are becoming more frequent and intense. And they're actually placing outdoor education in a very vulnerable situation. In fact, to the extent where in the future, perhaps outdoor education programs won't be able to run, which is very concerning for all of us. Governments and local councils are rapidly putting in place disaster emergency management and incident response plans, and developing circular economies and reducing their carbon footprints. And what I'd be asking, or what I am asking, is outdoor education as a collective actively mitigating against the effects of climate change? Or is it left purely up to chance to individual people and companies or organisations? And can outdoor education provide a critical educational discourse in which students can develop a deep connection with place and incorporate ecological worldviews that advocate for environmental justice and sustainability? I just put a picture in here of, oh, sorry, I'm on a different slide to you. This is a picture of someone sitting at a rock in Marysville in Victoria, and they're looking out over the landscape that was devastated by the bushfires. These are a fair few years ago back in Marysville, but we can see that situations like the bushfires from last summer really impacted the environments in which we run outdoor education programs. So the long-term impacts of climate change could signal the demise of outdoor education schools programs altogether. In Australia, we have increasing weather pattern events such as floods, cyclones, heat waves, storm surges, tidal surges, bushfires, droughts, and rising sea levels. And these have forced many outdoor education programs to change. And this has led to outdoor education programs being rescheduled, relocated, redesigned, cut short, and in some cases cancelled altogether. So outdoor education providers have had to adapt and mitigate and build in resilient strategies to be able to cope and address activities, and maybe even have to change the locations in which activities have been scheduled in. So groups may need to also change in the sense that they may need to change the equipment that they carry. They may need to carry more equipment to build shelters to shelter from the extremes. And these could be tarps for rain, but also tarps for more extreme sunlight to shelter in the heat of the day. They may also need to carry more technology. So they may need to carry things such as apps which have early warning signals, which could indicate lightning strikes, weather apps, online river gauges. And these things will need to be continually developed and adapted to ensure the safety of our students and staff on outdoor education programs. So it is quite distressing, the climate change. And as we know, we do have these rising sea levels, beach loss, tidal inundation on our shores, the salinity of wetlands, and the salinity of wetlands and increasing rain could even increase things like mosquitoes and vector-borne diseases, which could impact people participating on outdoor trips in certain areas. A shout out to Damon and his crew again. In March 2022, the Outdoors People for Climate Action group formed in Australia, and this group comprises people concerned about the state of its climate and its impact on outdoor education. And this group has been lobbying the federal government to consider the impacts of climate change and these impacts on outdoor recreation in Australia. Along with the impacts of climate change, we also have some people being in denial of climate change. And Joanna Macy says that some people actually live between the emotions of being in disbelief and denial, and then they actually don't take action because they don't know how to take action. So we sort of have people that get stuck in this vortex when we actually need to take action, and we need to take it sooner than later. So this idea is also shared by Gray, 2018, who attributes the mindsets of people feeling powerless to act and who are overwhelmed by the magnitude of these problems. We have terms such as climate despair and plant blindness and nature deficit disorder, ecophobia and extinction of experience, and they all involve a disconnect from nature. And this is where outdoor education can really take a stance, and we can really advocate for our profession to take people into nature and to, through place-based education and experiential education, foster a love of nature and that care of nature and stewardship of nature. So there's the hope that developing a relationship with nature is the precursor for love and care of the environment. And outdoor education can help to inspire and educate youth to become more ecological, literate and develop the confidence to resolve to both engage in and take positive steps for environmental justice. I thought I'd just briefly mention environmental stewardship, because we can't really care for something unless we have that notion of stewardship towards something. And we know Outdoor Education Australia, which works quite closely with ACARA, says enabling perspectives in contemporary living and human to nature relationships. Through the provision of outdoor experiences, students are provided with opportunities to reflect on healthy alternatives for everyday living and lay the vital foundations for sustainability and stewardship in the future. So we've got Outdoor Education Australia and ACARA using these words of stewardship and sustainability. So these are words that we need to embrace and connect onto and latch onto. Here on the Sunshine Coast, we have a local Indigenous group, the Gubbi Gubbi group, and we teach our students, we take them on an Indigenous worldviews workshop, and we latch onto the notion of the Indigenous stewardship with nature. And that is something that the students learn about, and they can latch onto that and take that knowledge with them. So I do encourage you to connect with your local Indigenous community groups and make connections with them, because that is a really good way to engage in environmental stewardship. Martin and Gray, two outdoor education academics, talk about that outdoor education can be a pathway to enable students to lay the vital foundations for sustainability and stewardship now and into the future. So there's some good researchers that you could also look up. And as a society, we need to be mindful that as we recover from the COVID-19 crisis, which has nearly been going on for 2 years and will probably continue on for quite some time, we mustn't take a step backwards to where we came from before the pandemic. We really need to take this opportunity to build a more sustainable and inclusive society and a more prosperous and resilient world. So we need to think about how we can move forward and become more sustainable. And for me, I'm disheartened by the amount of rubbish I see here on the Sunshine Coast out when I'm walking or riding, and especially face masks and things that have just been discarded. We all know Greta Thunberg, and she's done a lot for environmental or climate justice. She's a really fantastic role model. And for me, I'm always looking for younger role models to inspire younger generations. I'm now 50, so I can sort of harp on about things, but we need to try to find younger role models who can really talk to our students and resonate with our younger students. So Greta Thunberg is a great role model for climate justice and for future Fridays and rallies and things, and just being an advocate for social justice and environmental justice movement. So I would definitely embrace her and leverage her in my teachings of young people. So that brings us on to sustainability, because there is a need for sustainability. And when I started doing my research at USC, I sort of thought about the notion of sustainability, but then and sustainability is the only way we can really alleviate the climate crisis, because we have to use our resources and be more smart about how we use the resources that we have. So that sort of led me to the idea to research sustainability, because that's the only way I think we can reduce our impact on the earth. So what does sustainability mean to you? So just take a moment to have a think about that, maybe jot some notes down. I don't know if anyone would like to share what they think sustainability means to them, because you've been listening to me for 20 minutes.
I'll have a go.
Okay.
To me, I think sustainability means being conscious of your impact on the planet, both socially and environmentally, and try to reduce that as much as you possibly can.
Thanks, Pete. Anyone else?
Just similar to along the lines of Pete, I'd say that we need to live better and make smarter choices to ensure that we're not depleting resources.
Thanks, Linda. Well, I suppose one of the problems with sustainability, when they use this term in the Brundtland report in 1987, they talked about sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future generations. And the term sustainability or sustainable development got intertwined with people, profit, and the environment. And it was integrated with development and how we could try to bring up people in the more developing countries to have the same sort of future as we have in the Western style countries such as Australia, etc. And by doing that, then that sort of allowed for the use of more resources. So the different meanings and interpretations and actions associated with sustainability and sustainable development across diverse contexts and cultures raise contention in relation to what is being sustained, how is it being sustained, and by whom is it being sustained. The term sustainability actually rose to a mantra, the prominence of a mantra, and soon became a term that everyone likes, but no one was sure what it actually entailed. With its definition being so vague, it led to misinterpretation, as it was deeply entwined through knowledge systems, cultural values and ethical, political and economic issues. It was highly instrumental in developing a global view with respects to the planet's future, as soon as it became embedded in both both public and private sectors at a local, national and international level. Wealthier and more established countries sought to preserve the environment by implementing global legislation, while developing countries were conscious that international agreements could hamper their growth and future prosperity. Sustainable development became a compromise between intertwining social, environmental and political needs, and it's become a wicked problem. It's a problem that is very hard to solve because it is embedded in politics, and it's not easy to develop and implement sustainable practices due to the sort of it's deeply rooted into so many facets of economies. policies, politics, etc., etc., etc. So sustainability, it's more than a buzzword. It's a concept that defines what is needed for our civilization to survive. And the discussion about sustainability is therefore one of the most important ones which we should be having on the planet today. So I know in this inside the Outhouse today, there's about 11 or 12 people having this discussion, and hopefully more people will jump on board and listen in. But we need to be having discussions with sustainability with our students, with our friends, and with our families. So it's fundamental within education and in the university sector that we actually train our teachers to be not only understand sustainability, but to be confident to have those discussions with students in their care on future outdoor education programs. You can't see yourself in that picture, sorry, Linda. That was from last year's trip. And there is a lot of articles written about teaching into tertiary education and embedding sustainability practices in the university sector and in teacher training. But there's not a lot of papers discussing how we embed sustainable practices into our outdoor education programs. Thomas et al. Talks about the threshold concepts for university outdoor education programs. And one of these threshold concepts is outdoor educators advocate for social and environmental justice, which is something that's paramount to all outdoor education programs. But how do we actually embed this into outdoor education programs, and where does it actually slot in? And when we actually go to on an outdoor education trip, often as the outdoor educator, we get a program that might say Monday high ropes, Tuesday mountain biking and rock climbing, Wednesday rafting, Thursday sailing, Friday initiative activities. And we don't actually have environmental justice or sustainability mentioned. We might have them mentioned in the overall aims of the program, but we don't actually know where we're meant to talk about them or discuss them. So this is sort of where my research is sort of aiming, that I'm looking to do or am doing.
Can I ask a question at that point in time?
Yes, you can, Peter.
I guess I have worked for a few programs, and I know what you're saying about that particularly busy activity kind of focus in outdoor ed programs at perhaps the expense of a climate change focus or a environmental justice focus, as you said. Do you think there's pressure in the wider outdoor ed community to continue that, because that's sort of considered, I guess, for want of a better word, the things that people go home and have had a, I hate to say it, but a good time, versus the other, it sort of seems more academic and more hard work? I'd like to perhaps hear from other people about their experiences in this area.
Yeah, I'd say, Pete, it's more the activities are sort of seen as the bread and butter of the programs. But as I said before, the future of outdoor education is quite compromised by climate change, and it could actually cause the end of climate change. So my question is, why wouldn't you be discussing these issues with the students on the programs? And when we are out on trips, when we can see the impacts of climate change, then that's a great opportunity where we can be discussing them. Like on one of the recent trips, we had one of those huge storms come through in the middle of our trip. So we can talk about, you know, the increase in changing weather conditions and how they can become more ferocious, et cetera, et cetera. Or when you are on the beach and you can see a lot of erosion happening, or when you actually have to cancel the trip because of the weather, et cetera, et cetera. Anyone else like to join in the conversation?
Yeah, g'day, Robyn. Sorry I haven't had my video on. I've just been cooking dinner, but thank you so much for the presentation so far, and thanks for giving Outdoors People for Climate a shout out before as well. And yeah, I think it's an interesting point, because I think so many outdoor education programs are focused and sold as those activity heavy programs, and sort of maybe saying you're going to be delivering a session on climate change might not come up as sort of rate as highly to clients, or might not be as high of a priority for schools in terms of going on an outdoor program. But I think it is such an important thing for us to be thinking about how we can incorporate it into programs, and trying to make time between activity heavy programs to be delivering something about it or discussing it. And yeah, with Outdoors People for Climate, like, we're very much focused not in the field and what gets delivered in the field, which is why this is really interesting and really important. We're sort of focused on that political sphere and sort of what businesses and what individuals can be doing. But yeah, I think it is such an important thing and such a challenge, but something so worth doing and so important for us to be talking about with students in the field.
Yeah, it's a pity I didn't. Thanks, Damon. And, you know, you folk do some great work. And it was a pity that you know, this week we didn't get to all meet down in the Blue Mountains for the conference, because I think that would have been fantastic to sort of meet and discuss all those things in the foyer that we could have gone and sort of chatted about. I know that Tony Keeble down at the Bogong, was the Bogong School Camp, I think it's changed names now, in Victoria, but they've actually changed their whole policies are written around sustainability, and they got a sustainability person to come in and write their whole program. So everything they do is about sustainability. And even though they're a residential camp, some nights they have a meat-free night, and they've actually talk about, you know, the impacts of raising livestock on the climate. So it is having those provocations and putting them in and making a place for them. And I always like to think, you know, it is good just to have those provocations or those questions that you can just put out there, or images that provoke in people a curiosity or a sense of wonder or challenge.
Robyn? Oh, sorry, you go, David.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Thank you. I was just having a think, and I work mainly with university students, but I have worked a few school programs over the last few years, and I don't know that I've worked a program where it hasn't come up naturally. Young people are woke. They know about things. They know about these issues far more than what I did when I was their age, or even 10 years ago. And that, like, they want to know. They're interested. And if they're not, I think there's ways in which, and I hear you, Pete, like, it's hard if you're like, you know, doing a program where you've got like a different activity each day and you've got to like pump things through, but like, you know, students are interested about like things, and they're questioning like, you know, what happens after a bushfire, or what happens like after major weather events, or like, why are these things happening? And I think like one of the most impactful programs that I run at like a university level is like a slow pedagogy trip where we cook on fires and take it really slow and kind of delve into these things deeply. And that's the trip that students remember. They don't remember or their favorite trip is that one and not the hard skills focused one kind of thing. So I think there's like definitely a balance, but from I don't know, from my experience, students want to know about this sort of stuff. So I think we would be, I think we need to be kind of like informing ourselves and then helping them through that as well.
Sorry, I don't know who you are because I can't see who you are, but
Jenna.
Jenna. No, thank you very much for your comment. And I was actually just thinking about that. It is about going slower. So you are in the moment and you've got time to actually stop, and anything you can do, bushwalking, canoeing, cycling, those slower activities, where you can stop and you've got time to stop and question. But unfortunately for some outdoor providers, that doesn't sell a program. So that is one of the issues. I distinctly remember as a youth being at Metagundy, and I don't know if anyone here's had the opportunity to go to Metagundy, but every night at Metagundy, they would actually plan a discussion about the future, and you get to talk about your future. But I really felt that those moments resonated with me, and I think we can do more on outdoor trips to have time for those discussions.
Hello, Robyn. Upon what Jenna was saying with our the slow trip, so I've been on that trip. It was incredible. And you know how we're like talking about, younger people who are school age, more like activity focused. It kind of, for me, begs the question as to like, what would happen if they're so thirsty for these conversations and to dive deeply anyway, if we just sort of either started delivering programs, with this focus of slowing down and being able to delve into it. / my question also to the room is, has anybody worked any of those programs before or been a part of them in some way?
I've definitely been involved in, I don't know exactly Jenna's program, because I went to uni quite a few years ago in the 1990s and even the 89s. But we did programs like that. I remember going down the Murray River and actually putting the two canoes together and building a fire between the canoes and making a cup of tea. And, it was just sleeping out under the stars. And you were connected with nature, not having that layer of the tent around you. You saw the meteorites, you saw the shooting stars. If the rain came, you got a little bit wet, etc., etc. I definitely also think longer programs allow you to get into the rhythm and the pace of the programs. So, so I've had those experiences which have helped shape who I am and what I'm passionate about.
I could probably speak to that a little bit. Just with my experience of some field trips in the last year through my course, I think it is like really a testament to the teachers and their where their values lie with environmental sustainability, because the field trips I've been on, the transitions between the activities of the day, there was always some component of sustainability education in the debriefing, or fostering an open discussion within the peer group, whether it's something as little as leave no trace, or talking about like packaging or how we're making our food for the entire trip, just little things like that. And I think that might come into this idea that you were talking about before, Robyn, people are overwhelmed with the size of the problem of climate change, and just realizing, like, you know, at least trying small little, being imperfect, but trying to pick up little or changing little ways and we do things. I think just exposure overall, and that would come through, yeah, the teachers like all of you guys and me one day being educated around that and how we can expose students to that.
Yeah, I can't. Thank you. I don't know who you are either, so I do apologise.
Student at VU.
For not
Bachelor of Leadership.
I can see some people are asking questions. Look, I will just quickly get onto sort of what my ideas for my study are, and then we can have a bit more of a discussion. And I think sort of going back to Damon, who spoke before, it could be a matter of, I know the geographers declared a climate emergency, and then they said by doing that, then all their policies needed to embed sustainability and sort of advocate for reducing their environmental footprint. So whether outdoor educators can declare a climate emergency, I'm not sure if people would be interested in, you know, putting their heads together to do that, but that could really make us embedded into our policies. So at the university, when I first started working here, I was, well, Sunshine Coast University has an amazing mandate for sustainability, and they've won quite a few awards recently in their sustainable practices, but they have solar panels on their roof. They've got a big water chiller that chills all the lecture theatres and all the rooms. So that's run by the solar power on their roof. Their campus is a land for wildlife, so we have kangaroos bounding around the campus, etc., etc. So that they do a fantastic job. But I was a bit mystified by some of the students, and especially at the end of the trip, where they'd just come back and they'd put all their rubbish into a plastic bag and they'd throw it into the bin, when we had like 4 separate bins at the university that they could sort it out into. So this sort of started me thinking about, well, what can we do to promote sustainability in outdoor ed programs? And it's great to hear that lots of things are already happening. So my study is sort of going to look at outdoor education programs, and hopefully across Australia. Obviously, at the moment, it would be a bit difficult to look at programs in Victoria and New South Wales because they're not really running at the moment due to COVID. Hence, I'll probably put it on hold for a little bit of time. But can we embed sustainability and sustainable practices and some of the sustainable development goals into programs, policies, or are these embedded into people's policies? So if I went to organisations and programs, would I be able to see these words in their policies? And then how do we actually go about programming it into those programs? So can we see on Monday afternoon we're going to have a talk on climate action, and are we going to structure in to have that talk about reducing our plastics in outdoor ed? And where does this come about? Is it before the program when we're having a briefing, or is it in the program? And then the final part is what practices actually take place. So it'd be great to get a snapshot of all the sort of environmental practices that happen on programs in Australia. So as a collective, we can use this information to, you know, champion the good things that happen, and then create more goodness as we go along. So does anyone want to, I'll just quickly go through what we do at USC. So we have some USC Sustainability policies, and they're the overall governing policies of the university. So in our department, we should embed those. We also have a OES journal that the students have, and in that journal we have some environmental ethics. Now, when we talk about these environmental ethics, they sort of are more like the leave no trace ethics, like, you know, don't toilet near a stream, etc., etc. Take all your rubbish with you. On our program, we have the minimal impact practices incorporated. We have discussions planned and facilitated on programs in relation to sustainability and to climate change. I would say that some of these are left up to more the individual and passionate educators than all educators. So it'd be great to see this happen more across the board. And in the course I teach, we have environmental panel discussions which incorporate the Sustainable Development Goals. In terms of the practices, what we have is we've got compost tubes. So on our programs, we collect all the compost and we take it back and we put that into our compost at university. We aim to recycle all the soft plastics. We use reusable scouring pads, as you can see in the picture there. We maintain all our gear, and this gets repaired. Last semester we had some foxes that chewed through some of the tents and some rats at one of the campsites. We try to use group forms of transportation and encourage students to get to university using their bikes or carpooling or using buses. We encourage the students to use secondhand gear off marketplace, etc. And we try to encourage students to think about the food that they bring on trips. Unfortunately, during COVID, there's more packaging of food that we've seen and a lot more sort of waste. And we try to link our programs to the Sustainable Development Goals. So that is sort of what we're trying to do at the university, to filter into those policies, the programming of how we implement it into a program, and then the practices on the ground. So has anyone else got any other things that they do that they'd like to share?
I've just dropped into, it's Linda here, I've just dropped into chat program, top line program for YMCA campaigns Adventure Day Camp. So it's essentially their vacation care program. So that's ages 6 to 12. So it's trying to integrating all the sustainable development goals and really trying to educate the young people while they have them for a long period of time, like over the day, or throughout the whole day, while still having those sort of adventure related activities such as the giant swing and canoeing, things like that. You might just send that link.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, sorry, I can't see the chat, so I apologise if I'm not answering people's questions because I don't know where it is. Yeah, so look, there are ways we could incorporate those sustainable development goals as provocations, and especially if we teach in, I mean, when we open up internationally again, a lot of the outdoor education programs actually take students overseas. So that's a great opportunity to delve deeper into some of those SDGs as well. Someone ask a question, come on.
Oh, just like a little extra thing that I do with students as well is discussions around wastage with food. So cooking what we think we're going to need rather than just cooking everything and then having lots and lots like left over, I think is like a really easy conversation to have that makes sense, but also can like help, because you can, like, if things are still packaged, you can use that food again on a different program.
Oh, I can see you now, Maddie. I could hear your voice, but I couldn't see you. But now I can, so that's lovely.
I stopped screen sharing, so Robyn can see everybody. I figured we're at the point of chatting with everyone.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we do waste a lot of food, and I'm amazed when I actually come back from a lot of the trips, I actually get everyone's rubbish and I just tip it out, and then I'm just like, I'm astounded by what you actually find. That, you know, it could be a whole apple or it could be a whole bag of pasta or something that I often recycle or upcycle to someone else. But I think also a lot of clothing gets left behind on programs and gets thrown out. Well, I bring it back and clean it and take it to the op shop. But yes, it is a complex. It's complex to know what to do with everything. Even when we think about, I suppose, the circular economy and buying locally. A lot of the outdoor gear is made overseas. A lot of it is made quite cheaply, and it's probably made to break after time, and then for us to consume and buy more of it. So how can we try to even source gear that we know perhaps it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but is going to have a longer life and not break down? So I don't know. Does anyone have any solutions to that?
In terms of clothing, I would suggest to buy Patagonia Gear, because then they actually offer their amazing workwear offer, where any piece of Patagonia clothing that you have ripped or torn or even shredded, they will actually repair it for free after you send it to them and send it back to you for the life of the clothing. I have Patagonia shorts that have been repaired for going on for 30 years.
Yes, we've seen your clothing, Pete.
Thanks.
I think as well, normalizing fixing clothing or gear as well. I think that it's not talked about, and I think sometimes with particular gender roles coming into play there and being harmful, I know that it can be really powerful to discuss that with people who otherwise wouldn't have those role models to like discuss talking about things. One thing that I also like to kind of just use as to normalize, I suppose, is talking about like reusable and more sustainable menstruation products with the whole group. And I just include that as part of my brief, so that way, like, everybody feels really normal. And if they have questions, then they can ask. They're like, "Oh, what's that?" And then we can talk about it. You know, Jess, did you have things?
I was just going to agree. I was going to say, normalizing and talking about moon cups and reusable, menstruation products is really good, because the byproduct of that is a big conversation that opens up, perspectives and normalizing things like that.
I think also prepares, those girls for, when they do get to motherhood, it's thinking about, how can we actually then have reusable nappies and, that whole sort of waste, because there is just so much that we tend to just consume.
I had a great experience with these two young boys, and so I was giving a period talk to a group of I think they were 9 to 12, so doing like Duke of Ed or something, and I asked anyone if they had they knew what a menstrual cup is, and these two Year 9 boys were just like, yep. And they just explained it like the best explanation I've probably heard. And from that point on, it was just so cool, because all of the girls had their period on the trip, and so they felt comfortable to talk about it in front of the entire group. It wasn't something that should be hidden or shameful or anything. And I think that was just like one of my favorite experiences with young people and menstrual cups, pretty much. So yeah, I think like normalizing that sort of, I think in the past it was kind of like very shameful to have your period or whatever, so, and something to be hidden. And so I think changing that type of thing is really important.
More platforms as well where you can sell secondhand clothes. I know there's a few things floating around, but just, more word of mouth and sharing of those.
Jessica, if you have links or of Facebook
I'll
groups where put them in the chat, and we can then share them across our platform wider with the video. We put links to all the stuff that's in the video in the bottom of our YouTube stuff. I've got a question, Robyn. How do you get a school? So I'm working for a school. How do you get a K through 12 school to engage with sustainability if there's not an existing culture there? Like, are there resources available through the Department of Education or other organisations that you're aware of?
Well, given that sustainability is a cross-curricular priority in ACARA, the Australian curriculum, then everyone should be, sustainability should be across everything. So I'd just go back to, it's in the Australian curriculum. And then I'd just say to the people, well, why wouldn't you? Why would you not talk about sustainability?
All right, fair enough. I know at my school, something I've done just on recent programs, I'm just new into it role, but we had a huge amount of fruit come back from program as normal. And instead of just throwing most of the way, I put them all, found the nice ones that were still good, put them in bins and put big signs on them and sent out a global email to all the staff and said, come and collect it and take it, because, we want it to go to someone's usage and not just sit in the staff room for another week and then get thrown away at that point. And I got rid of about 95% of it that way, which was great. And recycling a lot of the dried package stuff back into future programs. I did have a problem. I had one parent complain that dried instant noodles was out of date with her son's bag when they came back from program. But you have to live with that a little bit. So.
Yeah, I would say in some programs, even having the group gear, like having japaras, having all the clothing, so students don't have to feel that they need to go and buy it. A lot of the students in first year, I say, look, try and find a friend or someone in third year, and maybe they don't want that gear anymore and you can upcycle that gear. We do have quite a few sleeping bags and things in the shed that students can use, and tents, but it astounds me at some of those festivals how people take their things to the festival and then they just ditch their tents and ditch their belongings and their cool boxes and things. It's just a throwaway sort of society. So it's trying to change that mindset and embed it and make it serious. But I think, as Jess and Jenna were saying before, the young people growing up now, they are becoming more au fait with sustainability and climate action through the likes of Greta and those Fridays for Future and that action. So trying to harness that and build on that. But I think, look at when you go back to your programs and wherever you work, go back and think, is sustainability mentioned in our policies? Is climate action mentioned in our policies? Is climate change and mitigation for these things? Because I think without it, we're not holding ourselves accountable, and we need to do that. We need to hold ourselves accountable, and we need to make our bosses, our organisations take it seriously. And I know we're all passionate because we're here on a public holiday at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in some other places. But we need more than just passionate people. We need to make it organisational changes. What do you think, Mark? You're sitting there. I don't even know you, but hi.
Hello. Look, I'm keeping my mouth shut because I'm not feeling that great at the moment. But I appreciate the discussion, and I'm pretty cynical at the moment. I think it's a top-down thing.
I think you're less cynical than you actually say, Gilly.
Oh, I hope you're not hungover.
Oh no, I'm in Melbourne.
You should be hungover. You got the longest lockdown in the world now, I think.
It's sustaining for lockdown. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit empty. I was involved in OEG and Swinburne 16 years ago, and these things would come up on our program outlines. I'm now studying to be a primary teacher, and it's good seeing you referring to ACARA. It's creeping into the curriculum. I guess this is I know I'm a bit uncomfortable around these topics because it seems like we've needed action for a while, and
Yeah.
it'll happen. I feel like it's embedded in everyday society, and of course a field trip can touch on these things and make a lasting impact.
Well, that's what I've taught in primary schools, and that's one thing I did love, having my little class, and you could do a lot with your class. And I suppose that's one. If you are working in a school like Dave, and you've got those students year after year, you can really build something magical up. But if you're just working, those one-off weeks, it is challenging to sort of make that change, or really get under the nails of people.
Although it is surprising, if you educate about sustainable action and climate action, how much people actually take on board within the program context, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things where, if you have the opportunity to be talking about it, to be running sessions on it, to be educating about it, or just using those opportunities like we've talked about before, where we do have students that are engaged, are aware of it, and you have those teachable moments where you can talk about, bushfire damage or meat use or plastic use, taking charge of those, and as these passionate people that are interested in this, using that to drive those conversations, but then also recognising if you are someone that's passionate, working in an organisation that doesn't have that policy, and like Robyn said, if you go and have a look in your policies, see if sustainability, see if climate change is mentioned, and if it's not, then having those conversations with your employer, with other organisations, to really see what you can be doing and bring those ideas to the table as to how we can make some change on some level, both to our participants, but also to our organisation and our procedures. Thank you very much, Robyn.
No, thank you. Look, I was going to present actually at the outdoor conference and try to find some organisations to champion. So a shout out to, it was Bogong School Camp. People in Victoria will be able to help me. I think they're school leadership schools now.
I'll put the link in the chat already, Robyn, for everyone to click on earlier.
Yeah, and I know that Tony Keeble would be happy to chat to people about what he went through. Obviously, I think being a government-run school, they probably had that sort of funding backing. Maybe for private schools or enterprises, it might be a bit more challenging. As Mark was saying before, with ACARA, we need to keep on going back to those, the Australian curriculum. That is what we should be teaching. And we had a discussion the other day, I don't know if you were on it, Mark, for their national conference. They had a one-day seminar, and I posted that question, do you think having sustainability as a cross-curricular priority is a help or a hindrance? And the ACARA lady said, well, actually, she said it was a help because it could be used across every subject. But I think it just sort of gets lost in the stream, and we get so top heavy focusing on other things. So we need to sort of bring that back to the forefront.
I was very glad when you asked that question, Robyn, because I completely agree with you and think it was it's an interesting thing to be thinking about curriculum wise.
And what about you, Fleur? I see you sitting down there or lying down.
yeah, it's all very exciting. I actually had a Albert Park school from Melbourne that I took to Borneo about in 2019, pre-COVID, and they were amazing. The students led, like when we went out to dinner, if they didn't have their keep cups with them, they couldn't have a drink. So they all remembered to bring their keep cups, and the students actually were picking up rubbish all by themselves everywhere we went, plastic, and we kept a tally. And they actually were starting to refuse plastic straws, and they kept a tally of their avoided plastics and the plastics they'd picked up. And they actually were brave enough to not plastic bags and to, you know, not have plastic straws and stuff. So yeah, it's just depending on what group it is, but they were definitely, that whole school, they had 6 trips every year, the Year 9 group, overseas with the conservation program, and they were just amazing. They were totally on it. They'd be a really good, not role model, what were you saying, like an example? Like that'd be a really good one to get in contact with, is Albert Park.
Yep. That's not a new school, isn't it, Albert Park?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a public school.
Yeah.
But they really want to stick it to the private schools. The principal really wants to make it like a school of choice in Melbourne, that they all want to fight over coming there. And a lot of the people from the private schools are actually pulling their kids out of the private school and sending it to them.
And it's a vertical school, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. It's right near the beach. It's an old, I can't remember what the building was, but it was an old, like a circus or some, an old building. But yeah, it was really amazing. So yeah, there's definitely some really cool stuff going on.
Well, I gave the provocation to our students. We tried to have a plastic-free week, and I said either try to go without plastic for the week, or collect all the plastic you use. And then I asked them the other day, I said, what's been one of your biggest learnings this semester? And they said, one boy said, that plastic week, that just really got to me. I couldn't do it. Like, you know, I just realized how much plastic we do consume. So something like that, Fleur, like actually taking an audit of how many plastic straws we do use or we don't use, they're really good provocations. And that's somewhere you should work, Mark. Have a look at that school.
Flo, sure, I'll look into that. I'm not sure what you meant by vertical school.
Oh, it's built like, so it's actually like
physically.
Story. Yeah,
physically. Yeah, it's a 3-story. It's, yeah, you know, it's near the where the ferry comes in for the Spirit of Tassie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, Flo, in terms of recording the waste that was gathered, can you speak a bit more about what that offered and the merits of recording it? Yeah,
so the kids really noticed how much, it was a Year 9 group. So Albert Park every year does, they used to do a World Challenge trip with most of the school, the Year 9s. And so they do a lot of conservation work leading up to it. We were just really fortunate at the time too, the Kodakin Festival on his artwork with as well. So a lot of the artists from around Malaysia had done these amazing installations with recycled plastics as well. So the kids were just really noticing how much plastic was on the ground, you know, compared to home. And they started just picking it up. And I just said to them, you know, do we want to look at not having straws in our dinners, you know, with our drinks? And because we were drinking a lot of the juices, which were amazing, and the plastic cups and things like that. And then just one of the kids just decided, oh, let's just keep it. And when I did the build-up day, I said to them, I really want you guys to take your own keep cup as something on expedition that I find as myself. And yeah, then they were like monitoring themselves. If they forgot their keep cup, they couldn't have a drink. And and they were only allowed to buy bottled water if they were desperate, and they were all holding each other to account because we just treat all our water. But the kids let it, and I kept a note every day in my phone, and they'd tell me, you know, and they'd tell me that they went shopping and then they avoided how many shopkeepers had asked them if they want a plastic bag, and they avoided it. And they said that even because we were there for like 2 days, they went back in the same shop, and the shopkeeper had remembered not to give them a plastic bag because they didn't want one. So I thought that was incredible for Year 9 kids. I've had other trips with students that would never ever have worked. You know, I took an American group to Peru, and no way in hell they would have ever done anything like that. But yeah, it was just we reported it back to school, and yeah, it was just amazing. You know, it was just really cool.
I think part of the rubbish situation is actually changing people's relationship with their rubbish. I think a lot of people, and not anyone in this room, of course, we all see rubbish as this ugly stuff that once we actually take it from wherever we've picked it up or used whatever it was containing, we put it in a bin, and it goes to this place that we never see again. And we don't really know, I think we don't really know what happens with it. And I think in that action, we lose connection with rubbish. And I think one of the great things that Foxy does at USC is, due to the collection of massive amounts of beach rubbish and then the sorting it, particularly the sorting process, people actually get relationship with their rubbish and actually start to see what has been washed up from the ocean. And not all people, but a lot of people are quite shocked by that. Just on this relationship with rubbish thing, I have worked for schools in the past who've actually had cleaning up rubbish in the school grounds as a punishment. And these are often, I've worked in schools as high as year 12, where, you know, year 12 students are actually, shall we say, a behavioural consequence is to pick up rubbish in the school playground. And whilst I think it's good to have a clean school playground, I think that type of mentality often changes people's relationship. What do other people think about that?
I think, Pete, like equating that with a negative behavior is like a really interesting point, because I know that, like, I usually get a better response. Like, if we're paddling down the Murray, I'll often like pick up things, and I won't, if it's not at the forefront of that program, say it's like, I don't know, I'm teaching like canoeing skills, all I see is that being, it's like a domino effect. Like, if I do it, then other people start doing it, and then the whole group's doing it, and then we've got a canoe full of beer bottles, which is a great thing to have. But yeah, and then it's kind of like, what do we do with that at the end? And it creates a conversation. And so that's kind of like a sneaky way of doing it, but in like a positive way. So I think, Pete, what you've said is like really, like a really good point.
And I think that's where the challenge comes in for a school program is, do you have a bin at the school? Do you have a bin at the venue where you can deposit it and then talk about where it will go from there when someone else collects it? And will it just go into a trash heap? And there's been quite a few documentaries recently about the recycling industry and whether or not it actually works in Australia, or whether or not it's actually, eventually just ends up in a refuge tip anyway, because it's not sustainable in itself. I think there was an ABC documentary maybe last year about it. We're just aware, it's been a great conversation. We're just aware that it's a little bit past our cut-off time, and we just want to be respectful of people's time tonight on a public holiday, Monday night, start of term 4, for some people tomorrow morning. So I just want to say thank you very much to Robyn Fox from University Sunshine Coast for giving us an amazing presentation tonight. A great turnout for a public holiday for us, and for making the effort to come in tonight, and for everyone's questions and comments. We'll stop the recording, but feel free to hang out and continue the chat. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.